Welcome, everybody, to The Lawyer Show. I'm your lawyer, Jeremy Rosenthal, and today we have a very special guest. His name is Jason Burress. He is a catastrophic injury lawyer. Before we get to Jason Burress, let me tell you a little bit about The Lawyer Show. Of course, you probably already know this because I'm sure you've been with us for every single episode very faithfully. The Lawyer Show is a show for lawyers, by lawyers, about lawyers, where lawyers can be lawyers. That is, exaggerate our victories, name drop a lot of important people that we know, talk about how we have to pretend and feign emotions during certain times, and how we visit with clients and we feel their pain, and at the same time we're trying to feel around for their wallets as well. Although Jason doesn't have to do that. He gets his money other ways, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But we're good to be back after Thanksgiving. And so anyway, without further delay, let me throw it over to our lawyer for the day, Jason Burress. Go ahead and introduce yourself to JP, Kathy, and the crew nation on The Lawyer Show.
All right. Well, I'm Jason Burress, Burress Law in McKinney, Texas. And we've been in McKinney for, 13 years now. I've been in McKinney for, I think, 18 years. Have practiced law for 19 years. That is unbelievable to say. And so you and I have been pretty good buds for a while now. And, I'm honored to be here, but I'm very frustrated already. I'm very frustrated. Your music on your podcast is cooler than my music.
Well, okay, so you got to buy the we pay for Jason's got his podcast, and we're going to talk about how frustrated actors have podcasts during times of pandemic when we can't sing and dance in front of juries.
But answer me this.
Yes.
Did you stop them? Because I heard it twice. Did you stop it and play it again because you knew your music was cooler?
It's 18. My wife picked it out. It's 18 seconds long, I think, or 20 seconds long, and I think we have to wait for 90 seconds for some reason that I don't understand. So in a perfect world, we could do it, but we had to pay the rights, the copy, and I don't know if on your podcast you did this or not, but you got to pay the copyright rights, or Facebook will put you in Facebook jail and bar you because it recognizes your music. And Judge John Payton, who you know, and this is his network, JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. They're good friends with Randy Travis, and Randy, what a headbanging experience that has to be to have. Randy Travis, my understanding is he gave them the rights to play the music on his podcast. Well, that's great. Well, now all you have to do is tell that to Facebook and their 1,800 lawyers, right, in wherever California. All you got to do is wait. I'm sure that's really easy to say. No, he's given us permission. So it's a headache to be sure. But you've promised that you're going to let me come and ruin your podcast at some point.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
What kind of music do you guys normally play as your intro?
It's a softer. It seems to be more elevator style. I got to talk to my team about it. I'm frustrated. So, but as to whether we pay for it or not, I shall admit no crimes on this podcast. No, I don't know. I don't know if we do or not.
Well, you're with the right lawyer.
Yes.
So very good. I mean, and look, man. You know, the art of this is, and we had an IP lawyer on here a few weeks ago, and for things to have copyright and to have intellectual property protection, they have to be unique and they have to be novel, and basically I fail at all those things, so we're really fine here. This is just. Well, if
you run into trouble, I do play a little guitar, so I could potentially do something for you.
Well, so. Right now, so the audience knows, I'm on a Zoom waiting for one of my favorite district judges, and I've been waiting since 9 o'clock this morning for him to pull me into a room so I can get yelled at. When that starts, if we can find a guitar somewhere, we might take you up on that right now.
Yeah. Well, hang on.
So
I've got you pulled up, and I'm just wondering, how do I share this thing?
Oh yeah. So we're.
Are you still working on it? Okay, all right. I'll wait for you then.
So this hour of the Lawyer Show is dedicated to my friend Jason Burress, and it's an opportunity for him to tell the world right? What kind of lawyer you are, and what flavor of law you practice, and man, what makes it go? Because I'm only so interesting, and even that's probably an overstatement. So, tell JP, Kathy, and the Crew Nation tell them about your practice.
Yeah, so our practice is personal injury only. We do it on the plaintiff side. Interestingly, when I started the firm in 2008, for the most part, AIG started the firm. That was the big client, and so we were doing work on the defense. And it was catastrophic claims, and then eventually I landed the casualty level claims of AIG. So I was doing some insurance defense to get things going, but I always knew that I wanted to help the folks, help the neighborhood folks. And then all of a sudden we got neighborhood folks, and then all of a sudden we got people in Oklahoma, we got people in Florida, we got clients everywhere. So most of our clients are actually not in Collin County. But yeah, personal injury only. And, I think you try to have those cases be of some significance. So if it's just if it's a car crash and it's a fender bender, and they don't go to the ER, and maybe they go see a chiropractor a few times, that's probably not the case for us. There are others who handle the smaller cases, but for us, our business model is quality, not quantity. So we don't have a ton of cases, and we have more than we've ever had. But I think we've all got a reasonable caseload, and it's just been great. I've loved it.
Well, that's how many lawyers do you have with you?
We have 4, so 3 aside from me. So we've got Brian Mincher, who is a 21-year lawyer, great lawyer. Kyle Hale, who's been with me going on 4 years now, and then Hannah Conrarty, a younger lawyer. Actually, she's been practicing 7-8 years now. So everybody's got a good experience. Kyle's got close to 20 years.
And if they're Baylor lawyers, and you can add like 10 years on that, because Baylor lawyers are really special. We talk a lot about Baylor lawyers on the Lawyer Show, and how much special training they get from practice court.
Well, I tend to focus more on the top 50 schools, like SMU School of Law, and I guess UT is in that bunch somewhere. But,
look, I've already paid SMU everything, so you and I we're both pony lawyers, right? You went there for undergrad too, right?
No, I went to I call it Southwest Texas State University because that's what it was then. It's now Texas State. But to me, it's always Southwest. So I went to Southwest. And then went to SMU Law School. Of course, I just loved SMU, and I just thought it was a great school. But to your point, I think those Baylor lawyers, I think they come out maybe a little more practice ready to begin with. But of course, they don't really comprehend the theory part of it. So once the law changes and so forth, they're in a lot of trouble. But us SMU lawyers do a lot better job there.
Exactly. We understand whether or not concepts like whether or not the tax code has a soul. We can grasp the book and hold it and know, right? And they can work the 2-hole punch and the copy machine. And some of my best friends in the world are Baylor lawyers, and I. It's a bit of a tired debate that I've had on here, but since they're not here to defend themselves, let's keep going and keep digging into them. But it actually, I think, is an important issue for law schools, because I think there's some extremely talented students that go to Baylor who probably don't actually have to learn the 2-hole punch, and they don't have to learn some of the practical things. What everybody, I think, has to do is learn how to think like a lawyer, which is something that a more theoretical school like SMU, I feel like that's kind of what equips you there. And the Baylor lawyers, again, it's just very practice oriented, kind of like you pointed out. And they have a program there that's called Practice Court, where they kind of play lawyer for a semester, and they take a lot of pride in that. And so, not to take anything away, but you're right. You should be taking your top lawyers from the top 50 schools, and if Baylor just doesn't happen to be one of them,
well, they just have a hard time making the cut. They're more of a second-tier school. But seriously though, Tech does a good job with trial lawyers. I mean, obviously Mark Lanier and others, but they do a tremendous job too. I mean, the fact is Texas has really good law schools, and all kidding aside, if you graduate from almost every school in Texas, I think you're ready to go. Now you're going to be saddled with an enormous debt.
Right. That's what I wanted to maximize, and I accomplished it right off the bat.
SMU will help you do that.
Yes, and it's always good to know that I can spend. I don't even know how much they quit. I think asking me for money, but you can pay a whole lot of ducats to get not a very big ad in their alumni magazine. So they do all right.
Yeah, I mean I had a scholarship to SMU, and they're like, don't you like your scholarship? I was like, oh, I love my scholarship. I still can't eat, but I love my scholarship.
That's right. I one time they had a golf tournament when I was at SMU at oh my gosh, what is it? It's Chase Oaks. It used to be Chase Oaks in Plano, right off of Central Expressway. The prize for a hole-in-one was $10,000, and of course we're going to see the lawyer show's all about bragging and to some degree falsehoods. So I'm going to say this: I won the closest to the hole contest.
Okay.
And did you know Dean DeLoach?
Yes,
was he there when you were there? Okay,
Uh-huh.
so he thinks forever and ever that I am a cheat and a liar and a scum person. I've said two words to him my whole life.
I think you've got some retorts if I've read the news correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So on a par 3, right, a short hole, and we've played golf together.
Actually, that was Atanasio. That was not DeLoach.
Atanasio?
Yeah, that was.
Well, DeLoach was the dean of student. They were
Yeah.
deans of different things.
DeLoach was not in the news for criminal activity.
Oh, that's right. I'm with you. Okay.
You got it.
Now you were yes.
It was Atanasio.
Yes, Atanasio. That's right. Yes, that.
But yeah, I do know DeLoach. He was
DeLoach.
great.
Yeah, super guy.
Sorry about that. If you're listening.
I'm sure he is. Who wouldn't be? But I so the way that they do the closest to the hole for the non-golfers out there is there's a little punch card, a little stake that they put with a sign on it, and when you go, your group goes through the par 3. Whoever hits the ball closest puts it where it is, and then the next group comes through, and if somebody hits it closer, they put the stake there and they write their name on it. I hit a ball, I'm not kidding, Jason, about that far away from the cup. About that far away from the cup. And DeLoach, whose name was on the thing, was about that far away.
So you got him.
So I got him, and everybody in my group saw it. So I put my name up there. So at the end, when they're giving away all the the goodies for all the prizes, they announced my name instead of his. And he saw me, and he's like, "You're gonna make a great lawyer, son."
That's awesome.
I mean that was kind of the vibe that I get. But the point I was trying to make is the prize was $10,000, which wasn't even a semester. Not even back in 1999 or whenever that was. So
when did you go?
I was there. I graduated. I missed I'm class of 2000. I took the bar in 01.
Okay. So we were there at the same time, I guess.
Well, if you were in the library, that's why I wouldn't have seen you, because I wasn't in there.
I was a librarian.
Were you
I was
really?
The library assistant person. I did that. I mean, I was the worst ever.
I think I actually tried that for a weekend.
Well, I used it to chase girls.
Man.
It was very effective.
Well, that's great.
I mean,
maybe I should have stuck to it.
We're being honest, right? I mean,
that's what this is about.
Okay, all right.
Well, and feel free to exaggerate too, because again,
I got them.
Okay, there we go. So a lot about the SMU School of Law here. I want to say that I worked for the library for, I don't know why, for like a weekend, and it was horrible.
Oh, it was terrible. I mean,
and I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, because back then you still had to know the Dewey Decimal System.
Right.
It was difficult. What floor are periodicals on? I don't know. When you find them, come tell me.
Oh.
That was the way my experience was.
It was rough, and I think my job was to write down who asked me for help and what I did, and it was, and I mean, a law library is an important. It really is an important thing, because you get a lot of pro se people, a lot of people who can't afford a lawyer, and they're looking to get out of a lease or find some way that they're being dealt with unfairly in their life, and so you do really deal with a lot of people who are not sophisticated with the law, and you got to kind of point them out in the right direction while not giving them legal advice and committing malpractice of some sort. But man, it was just a really we've probably dedicated more time to this than it's probably worth. It was boring.
And we didn't even talk about the lovemaking that I found in the stairwell of the law library one time. We didn't even get there.
Really? Well, well, all right.
I'm heading up the stairwell, and I kid you not, there are two people.
There was some romance.
They were, let's just call it making love in the SMU stairwell, and I realized that right then. I'm like, well, I'm the librarian. I'm not security, so I just headed on out, and I took the elevator.
You're watching JP Cathy and the Crew Network. You can watch JP Cathy and the Crew between 7:30 and 9, Monday, Wednesday to Friday. You're watching The Lawyer Show. We're on between 12 and 1 on Thursdays. The lawyer today is Jason Burress, and we were just discussing criminal offenses that may or may not be occurring in the law library at SMU. Man, that's I didn't know that. I've actually, see, you're getting me on. This is a dangerous path to go on. There was the old Collin County Courthouse on McDonald Street had stairwells in the corners of that building too.
I think I tried the last case in that court.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those may or may not have had reported instances of
really?
courthouse romance. Tell us about the last case you tried in that building.
It was one of the cases that I started with saying we don't take, because it was very early on. It was I think a year after starting the firm, but it was a case where there was our client was rear-ended, but there were 3 vehicles, and so we're in the front vehicle. Not a good case, right? So so bad guy who is a United States Army veteran, okay, runs into another person. That person runs into us, and there is 0 damage to the vehicle. And I still know this because in our demand packages, we include pictures of the bumper with the verdict, just to tell everybody, hey, this is what's up, right? And so our guy goes to, it's public, right? So Herrera, but he goes to the chiropractor 26 days after the crash. That's his first treatment. And he has chiropractic therapy for, 4 or 5 weeks. He has a little over $4,000 in medical expenses. And so, we're really just getting started and just kind of learning this side of it and the way these things should go. And because remember, I always did catastrophic claims on the defense. And so, and much to my surprise, State Farm was like, yeah, we'll give you $250. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I've got $4,000 in medicals. They're like, yeah, no, $250 is what we'll give you. So we tried that case, and it was a 2-day trial. After the first day, who's turned out to be a really good friend of mine, defense lawyer, came to me and gave me a letter and said, here is a new offer, and please show this to your client, and please have him accept it. And so anyway, I did, and I believe the amount was $15,000.
Great work.
And so, but we didn't take it.
Oh.
We did not take it. And we concluded the trial, and we ended up getting a Stowers verdict, which is a verdict above the policy.
Well, congratulations.
So they had to pay everything. They did pay everything. And that great defense lawyer who, is great to work with and a heck of a lawyer and, did a better job than me. When he mediates for me, he's got a great mediation practice. That's one of the stories he tells to the opposing adjusters, which is obviously very effective. That's
great, man. That's a great story. I'm glad I asked. So talk about. Let's talk a little bit about how COVID has affected y'all. It's just a really hot topic, and
sure.
I'll let you just kind of go.
Well, I think prepared a memo when all this stuff came down. What is this, like March or so? I was worried to death because I saw, I mean, our business is, probably 80% of our cases have something to do with a vehicle. It's either a tractor trailer, it's a commercial vehicle, it's, two passenger vehicles or motorcycles, bicycles, that type of thing. And there was nobody on the roads, nobody. And of course, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, right? You are, but I'm smart enough to know that's not good for business. And so I prepared this memo, and it was to our team, and it was hey, there's going to be problems, and we're going to have to, really tighten our belts and do a great job with what we have, because things are going to get worse, and they didn't. And I don't know why.
They didn't get worse, or they didn't tighten their belts?
They didn't tighten their belts, and thankfully things didn't get worse. They didn't get worse because it seemed to me that cars got back on the road, but not to the same level. But for whatever reason, we still did well on case acquisition. And that's really the lifeblood, of the firm. And so from that standpoint, we've done well and we've grown. I would say where there's been a bit of a problem, and it's really mostly on the bigger cases, they know we can't get to trial, and they can keep their money, and they know by keeping their money, your client could die, your client could get all better and lose future damages. There's any number of things that can happen. But we've had lawyers tell us, hey, my adjuster is giving you terrible offers because they know we're not going to try this case until 2022. And I think that's a very real thing. Now, there are insurance companies who have not done that, who have settled claims like for very full value. And I'm very appreciative, but there are some that they're just not doing it. They're pushing us out. And that's been painful.
And so, from our standpoint, from a criminal law standpoint, it's interesting to hear sort of, how these things have impacted you, because they're impacting us, but just in very different ways. And
I'm super interested to hear.
Well, I'll give you a for instance. So first off, arrests in March and April, I think, were down roughly 90%. So I used to think and joke with people that I'm in a recession-proof business, but apparently not. We very much rely on the police going out there and arresting people, preferably with money, right? and so when that's not happening for whatever reason, because they're under orders to keep the jails clear because of the pandemic, because themselves, I mean, the police are first-line responders, and they don't know what they're dealing with this virus. I think we have a better understanding of it now, and I think everybody has grown, for better or worse. Sounds like for worse. Everybody's grown comfortable to some degree with what the risks are. But back then, a really big X factor, and the police just not taking anybody to jail. So our business immediately dropped off very, very a lot. Now, on the practice end of it, what's been interesting is because we're on the defense, and the other side, in your cases, are obviously on the defense. Prosecutors are sort of trained to kind of do what I call hotboxing. They some of them will, well, you better take this offer now. Your client better take this offer now, and if you don't take it now, we're going to pull it off the table, and your guys are going to do more prison. So you better take this low offer while you can, and we'll give you more prison if you decide to contest this. And so, kind of a trial tax is what you might call it. And so it just doesn't work now, because I can turn around to my client and say, well, they want you to go to prison for 5 years and get COVID right now, or would we rather sit and wait, and when they get us to trial in 2023, if we lose, my legal opinion is we may get 5 years. Okay, right. Do you want to do prison now or later? Well, of course, they want to defer that, and they're fine living their lives and everything being normal for that time. And I think what's going to happen with both of us, and I'm already seeing signs of it with the Dallas courts and the Collin County courts, is the backlog is going to be so great, and if the dam breaks, so to speak, I think that the state in our instances are going to have no choice but to offer deals that today wouldn't be reasonable, or that a year ago wouldn't consider doing. Offers to dismiss felony cases that they normally wouldn't consider. Well, if your guy does this and this and this and this, we'll call it a day. And again, what's reasonable just changes based on the atmosphere and based on everything. And so I'm curious to see in catastrophic personal injury with some of these big cases where the insurance company is putting off your case and other cases in that category. I'm curious to see what happens when the proverbial legal gun is put to their head when they've got all of these stacked on them this time next year. I mean, is anything I'm saying? Sometimes I just talk.
Well, I mean, I think so. The bigger cases that we have, they always go to outside counsel. So you have inside counsel or captured counsel, and then you have outside counsel. So for inside counsel, they're really not being paid by the hour. I mean, they're captive employees of Allstate or
Exactly.
Liberty Mutual or whatever. They're not being paid by the hour. They need to get cases off their desk, and if nothing settles, then their volume is just overwhelming, and they've only got so much space and so forth. They will do these settlement conferences where they invite you in, and maybe we have 30 cases with Allstate, and we can bring all those in, and I'm using Allstate. It's not really Allstate, but
we can
Travelers is one of them.
we can bash them on here. It's fine.
Well, I hate Allstate. I mean, I just absolutely hate them. But they're probably the worst standard insurance company out there. But to get back to the story, if it goes to outside counsel, they are billing by the hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are, whereas we're not down, and all of our metrics are okay. The outside counsel I talk to, they all tell me they're down, and kind of the low number I've heard is 25% down. And so once they're getting these cases, they're like bulldogs. I mean, they are doing things in our cases, in our bigger cases, that I've never seen done before. I mean, it's surveillance here. I mean, they're
trying to find creative ways to bill their client. I hate putting it like that, but that's probably what that is.
That's what it is. And so it is causing us more work to keep up with it. And we can't get some of those cases settled that should be settled. And we're going and mediating them. And the mediator's like, I've settled this type of case, 10 times, in the last year. And this case should go for this. And I'm like, I agree. And yet they're offering a fraction of the medical expenses, uncontroverted medical expenses. And, you're just looking at it going, how can this be? And I think that's what's going on. I think, in one case that we have, it's a darn good defense counsel that was a total obstructionist to the case settling. And he's like, I've got concerns about this, and I've got concern. And you don't have any concerns. You just don't want to settle the case. You want to keep billing the file. You want to take all these experts. We got like 6 experts in the case. You want to take them all. That's what you want to do. And of course, I have to pay for that. I mean, in our business, once you hire the experts, you've got to pay, and you got to pay for deposition prep, you got to pay for the depositions, and you got to pay for trial prep, and you got to pay for trial, and it gets expensive. I mean, some of these cases, we've had cases where we had far more than $200,000 in, so it's expensive, and and I do think it's going to get worse. To piggyback off of what you were saying earlier. Once we start getting back into the courtroom, and I know we're a little bit back in the courtroom, but we're not really back in the courtroom. Once we start getting back, I just think Collin County is going to look like Dallas County did back then, if you know what I mean. Like, it was not unusual in Dallas County, whether you're in district court or county court, to get continued 4 times. And so you've got a case that you were ready to try in 2015, and you end up trying it in 2018, and that does not help your future economic damage model. And so I'm afraid that Collin County is going to look like Dallas County did before COVID, and what the hell Dallas County is going to look like a year from now, Lord only knows.
Is there a mechanism? Is there a mechanism, and I don't know the answer to this, to where you can get interest from a defendant who's basically saying, well, we just want to hold on to the money, right? So let's just take a round number. Let's say $100,000, which is probably just like a weekend for you, maybe. I don't know. But let's just take a settlement in the amount of $100,000. You demand, I'm going to take we want $100,000 for you guys to settle this case. They say, no, based on kind of what you're saying, we're going to delay this because we know we can, because even if you end up getting this from us, at least you'll get it in 2023 and not today. And today we can use it. It's liquid, it's equity. We can show our shareholders, our investors, we can earn interest on it. But is there a backside penalty that you can impose? Is there I don't know if damage model is the right word. Is there a way to where you can show the court, look, we made this demand back in 2020, and they didn't, and they wanted to, and judge, we're entitled to whatever interest they've made on it in those last 2 or 3 years. That's ours. Is there a mechanism to do that?
Yeah, there's a statute, and it's a later than, there's two things, and I think one is when you file, and one is the time you made a demand, and it's the later of, and I'd have to pull the statute, but there's a date by which that prejudgment interest starts, and it's 5%, and it's very. We had a case that we tried 5 years ago that the prejudgment interest was a couple $100,000. It was a big deal, but your run-of-the-mill case, like the Stowers verdict, the smaller case I was telling you about earlier, you were talking about less than $2,000. So it just wasn't, it's not that big a deal. But a bigger case, it can be huge.
Mm-hmm. And it's real money, and the insurance company, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
They know what they're doing. And let's talk a little bit too about sort of business model type of stuff for plaintiff law firms. I've always argued that it's plaintiffs' lawyers that in many ways keep taxes low, right? And it's kind of based on your business model, and think of it this way, and tell me how far off I am. So what happens is we have public policy, right, against torts, against negligence on the road, products liability, right, medical malpractice. We have all these laws in place, but they don't enforce themselves. Okay, the way that they get enforced is Jason Burress spends Jason Burress bucks, right,
sure,
to invest in a case that gets the defendant ultimately to comply with the law. And they do that through paying a judgment and paying a settlement. So basically when we talk about contingency fees, that's the absolute mechanism, the trigger mechanism that makes this all work, right? So talk to the jury about what a contingency fee is and why it's so important in your practice.
Well, the contingency fee is, it's not that I wouldn't say, hey, hire me for this dollar amount per hour. It may be a very high rate, make no mistake about it, but would I do it? I would consider it, but nobody wants to pay it. Nobody wants to, come pay $1,000 an hour for me to go handle their personal injury claim. For most people, it doesn't cash flow. And I guess they do it in family law cases. And I've seen some rates that are pretty darn high. I've seen $1,000 an hour. But for most people, we're not only waiting to take a fee until after we win, but we're fronting all of the expenses. And so a whole bunch of firms, most firms, the great majority of firms, have these bank accounts at like Happy State Bank and places like that, where they have these little silos, and so each client has their own mini line of credit, and they pay interest on when you however you do it. I'm about to tell you I don't have one, but however they do that, the interest on the funding for a case, the client ends up bearing that expense when the case settles. We don't do that. So essentially it's an interest-free loan. So not only are we not taking a fee until we win the case, but we are also fronting all the expenses on the case. And if we lose, then it's too bad, so sad. But I think it really is the only way to make a personal injury, and in particular a product liability case, go. One thing I wanted to hit on, because you were talking a minute ago about changing laws, and essentially I think you're saying we're important to make defendants, insurance companies, manufacturers, follow the law and do better. And product liability cases are exactly that. So I mean, I started my career at a products defense shop, a great place, Heartline Dacus, and we represented almost every automotive manufacturer, most of your tire manufacturers, a lot of component parts suppliers. But look, when I started, we were getting the what suit out of us, every manufacturer, GM, all of them, on the roof strength, because essentially you had these SUVs that were overturning, and when they were overturning on pavement, the roofs were crushing people, and I mean, just had all these deaths. And now, when's the last time you've seen a roof crush case? And for that matter, when's the last time you've seen an SUV roll over? Because what happened? The plaintiff's bar stepped in and started suing the heck out of these manufacturers, saying these aren't strong roofs. Well, at the time, the problem was there wasn't a safer alternative design. You didn't have anybody else out there making stronger roofs. And then Volvo XC90 comes along, and it had the stronger roof. And then it's like, okay, there it is. Mm-hmm. And defending General Motors at the time, that was a problem, right? That was a problem. And so it really gave the plaintiffs bar what they needed. And believe me when I tell you this, without the plaintiffs bar, auto manufacturers would not have made their products safer, faster. The bean counters were like, we'll just pay those claims. I mean, that's just the way it was with most auto manufacturers. So I think plaintiffs lawyers have done a huge service, especially as it relates to product defects.
Yeah, you're watching JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network. You can watch JP, Kathy, and the Crew between 7:30 and 9 Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're watching The Lawyer Show. We're live between noon and 1 on Thursdays. To that point, so it's exactly right. And you see, we've seen over the years, over the decades, just so much animus towards trial lawyers, which you got to say with a Southern twang, right? You got a trial lawyer, and you see so much anger and animus because nobody likes lawsuits. Nobody likes getting sued, right? It's not fun, okay? And we have to understand, though, and taking products liability, and another good example would be employment litigation, which I don't think you do any of, but that's another good example of the government coming out and saying, okay, we don't think there should be sexual harassment in the workplace, but or we could pay ridiculously higher taxes to have the government enforce and get in the business of everybody, everywhere's hair for these types of policies. Or what they do is they drop blood in the water, and they say, we will create a private cause of action. We will allow lawyers to take cases on contingency to sue a manufacturer, right? And then the manufacturer, the bean counters, like you're saying, they have to go in there and do the math. And once it turns out that we can save more money by making it right and making this safe, then paying out in judgments, that's when you get the safer roof on the car. And so that's a very important societal mechanism, that type of accountability, because it can either come from the government and super oversight, or it can come privately. And so that's why, give you a round of applause, because you use your Jason Burress bucks to enforce public policy for the rest of us. So
well, we've tried. It's not always easy, and to bookend the point I was making earlier, we're one of the very few who do not have these. I don't have a line of credit at all. I don't have a line of credit. We don't do those silos like other firms, and so we put all that money out. And I've been told I'm dumb for doing it that way, but I just have always done it that way, and I don't want to charge the client's interest. I just can't stand it. And would never do it. And so that's the way we've done business. And, maybe I can't drive a Ferrari every day, but I can drive a pickup truck.
Well, the fans of the Lawyer Show we're going to get you some cases. We're going to get you in that Ferrari. Let's talk a little bit about the city of McKinney and your involvement in the city of McKinney, because you are, you do a lot of work in the city of McKinney. Talk about your involvement when you were on MEDC.
Yeah, so the MEDC, or McKinney Economic Development Corporation, is one of two what we call money boards in the city of McKinney. McKinney Community Development Corporation, or MCDC, is the other. I've served on both. And McKinney Economic Development Corporation, it has the ability to be very helpful. I was on that board for 4 years and was elected chairman 3 years. And I think I was the only one to have that distinction that I know of. And I know Robbie Clark told me that, and Robbie knows more about McKinney than anybody. So it was an honor to serve in that capacity. But that does not come without frustration, and I'll be happy to share it. I think when you're on those boards, those money boards, you feel like you've got to do something, and you're always looking for any soft place to fall. And sometimes the best thing is to do nothing. Now, in our case, under my leadership, we didn't do nothing. I thought the best play for the city of McKinney. So we're a little further out. We're a little further north than, say, Frisco. We didn't have the institutional advantages of Plano. We're farther from the airport. We didn't have the Perot's and others. So things were just kind of, moving out and trickling out. So in my view, clearly development was going to come here, right? You want to do what you can to accelerate development, but in my mind, again, it's kind of like I run my law firm. I want quality, not quantity. So the play that we made under my leadership was to stop the rat trap hotels and storage centers and the like from being built on our thoroughfares, like 121 in particular, northern 75 to a lesser extent. But to capture big raw pieces of land and hold them as an EDC until the right projects came along. The only problem with that is you can execute that strategy, you can get everybody on board, but then you're going to roll off the board at some point. And is that same, strategy going to hold? And the answer is it doesn't always do it. So we got a lot of raw land that we were holding. We put some things in place where, 2 and 3 story buildings were not going to be constructed. It needed to be at least 4 stories. And so some things that we did that I thought, were really helpful. And under my leadership, Independent Bank was built, SRS was built, and you see that corridor on 121. And don't you live down there?
I don't want JP, Kathy, and the Crew Nation knowing where
Okay,
I live.
but you're okay.
Yes,
well,
I'm in there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of development down there, and you see a lot of stuff going in as early as January, and we put those things in place. But it's frustrating because I'm not used to losing, and in that business, when you're making a play for Amazon, for instance, you've got a 1/4% chance. You got a chance though. And for some other projects, you just know that you don't have quite as much firepower as Plano or Frisco or Dallas, or whatever the case may be. But you do the best you can do. You try to hire the best staff that you can, and you try to accelerate your development. But in my view, keep the quality there.
Mayor Jason Burress?
Never. It really hurts financially to spend that much time. I spent a ton of time, and I got frustrated at the end. I got really frustrated.
I want you to think about this for a second, because you answered me like within 0.8 of a second. No, but I want you to maybe spend half a. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm asked a lot about running for mayor. And first of all, I think George is doing a good job, and that doesn't mean that he and I haven't had fights and so forth, and we've yelled at each other, and there's things that I'm still sore over. But George was a guest on my podcast, and I love him to death, and we're about to we do a lot of business together, put it that way. But it takes a lot of time, and you have to make sure that you have the time available, and I think it really does hurt the bottom line of a business. And after being involved in it for 10 years, doing leadership McKinney, being on MCDC for 4 years, and I was George's vice chair, and then doing MEDC for 4 years and being the chair 3 years. Man, they know how I feel about things, and I'm high strung and very opinionated, and I want to focus on quality and vision, and I don't want to deviate from things, and I spent the time. 10 years, 11 years was enough, and I have no plans to get back in that arena.
And so when it comes to the city of McKinney too, that's obviously a topic that's near and dear to my heart. That's where I live. My wife works for the city of McKinney. And so, it's always interesting and fascinating to kind of see how things pan out, to see how the real estate pans out, to see how the development pans out, to see how the city's fortunes rise and fall, to see how we are relative to other cities, and some of the institutional advantages that you've kind of talked about, right? I mean, Allen is closer to the metro area. It just is.
No soul.
What's that?
No soul.
There's no soul in Allen.
Show me their downtown.
Well, thank you very much. There you go. You're going to score a lot of points here on the Lawyer Show with that.
Where's their topography? I mean, come on. It's no contest. City of McKinney is
right. And when you're talking about your individual sacrifices that you've made, and something like running for mayor, you do have to weigh it against is the juice worth the squeeze too, because you're also trying to make a living. You're a business owner. You've got yourself. You've got the lawyers who work at your office. You've got your full-time staff that you have to provide for. There's the cases that are important to you, the clients that are important to you, and it is. And I'd be curious to hear what Brian Lockmiller has to say, being a lawyer and being the mayor, at how they can really tear at you. I'm sure the exposure is probably something that's okay, but your business model too, being I understand that you do catastrophic injury cases. I don't have, I hope I never have to pick up the phone and call you, right? Cases for you don't grow on trees. You have to have a very mass reach with everything so that the right cases can in turn find you. So I can see that again, the juice not being worth the squeeze on running for office or something like that. One of my friends, a Baylor lawyer, says one of the only permissible ways to advertise is to run for office and lose. And so
I've heard that.
And he screwed up. He won. He ran for office and he won, and now he's stuck. And so, but yes,
I've heard that. I've heard the best thing you can do for your business is run for office. You get all your signs out, and then you come in second.
Right.
And so not only do you get the name recognition from all your signs in the campaign, but people feel sorry for you. But my ego would not allow me to take joy in a second place finish in anything. So that's not for me either.
I'm with you, man. I don't. Winning is fine. I like it. I'm great with it. I hate losing. I hate it. That's what keeps me up at night, and I imagine you're the same way.
Yeah, I can't stand it. With one exception. So if we have a trial for whatever reason, it's not that I'm not competitive. I'm super competitive, but I cannot control what a jury's going to do. And so I tend to focus more on my performance. Was I satisfied with my preparation? Was I satisfied with my performance? And if the answers to those questions are yes, then I'm good. And so that's the only caveat to my response, because I hate losing, but I want to put on a good performance at trial, and if I do that, then I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm exactly there with you. I mean, my thought is that if I try a case and I left it all out there, then it hurts less. I'll always still feel like I got screwed in some way, shape, or form, and really, you learn more when you lose. When I was a prosecutor, I learned a lot of hard lessons at the DA's office, and you just you just have to take it in stride. You have to go back and keep learning and keep learning and keep learning and keep developing. It's like a golf swing. Again, another good golf reference. It's like a golf swing. It's going to get out of whack from time to time. It's not going to be as perfect as you'd like. And Tiger Woods has to go back and re-perfect, because you can, particularly in a criminal practice, we're in trial so much that you can develop habits and so there's different times when you can kind of find that sweet spot. But if you really have left it all out there, if you know that your client got what they paid for, that your client got the best representation that they could possibly get, then I sleep at night. Then I'm better with it. Still hate losing, and I still try to figure out, what happened and how that it happened that way. But talk a little bit about, and I guess that kind of is a decent segue to podcasting, because you have a podcast. We talked about it earlier. I've found this to be cathartic. I've found this to be a good outlet for being frustrated at not trying cases. What are your thoughts on podcasts?
Well, if I can just hit one thing that you said before we get there, especially if we've got young lawyers listening. I mean, I would respectfully disagree a little bit on winning versus losing. I mean, I've probably learned more from my wins on things that I could do better than from my loss. And I just would caution anybody from thinking that they're going to learn more from losing. I mean, maybe not, but the bottom line is you never want to get used to losing. Now,
yes.
your deal's a bit different, because I think if you hit, if you do like what a baseball player would do, where you're batting 300, you're a Hall of Famer. Our deal's different. I mean, it's true. I mean, if we lose,
that's true.
There some bad decisions
That's true.
were made, but I want to win, and I never want to be a loser, and I sure don't want to get accustomed to losing and that type of thing. But as far as the podcast goes, man, we are losing big time. We are. I thought we were going to have like 1 million viewers, and it turns out, there's only a finite audience that wants to listen to legal talk. Who knew?
What are people thinking?
My son. So we do a video cast. So I guess we're podcast, video cast. We're everywhere. We got all different channels, but anyway, the video part is only on YouTube, and you try to get these subscribers. And my son, who's 8, okay, and he always comes in. He's like, "Hey, Dad, we just got a new subscriber," and I'm like, "We did?" He goes, "Yeah, Dad, you're up to 44 now." I mean,
How'd you get that many?
And he kids me. My 8-year-old makes fun of me. He's like, we kind of have a losing podcast. I'm like, son, we got 44. We're the fastest growing podcast in America. I mean, we had 22 like 3 months
That's
ago.
100% growth. Man, that's a great point. I have a blog. I blog a lot too, and so what's funny is you try to promote yourself. You try to promote, and being criminal defense is it's a hard sell sometimes. I've posted some of my blogs on LinkedIn, but it's about sexual assault. It's about domestic violence. It's about DWI. And I had a buddy of mine call me from high school, and he's like, "Man, I love all the things you post, but I can't hit like on that. I'm not going to hit like." And so, and I think my daughter said something to the effect of, "You don't have any likes on that," and I'm like, "No, you're right again. I sure don't." But have you enjoyed podcasting? Have you enjoyed the process, the creative part of it, if any? I mean,
man, I love it. I love it. I mean, I truly did it for me. I mean, I do. I mean, I'm not grandstanding or patting myself on the back, but just as a normal everyday father, life is not about us. I mean, it's about the kids. It's about the wife, and you just don't have a lot of me time. And I just had been thinking about it for months and months and months, probably almost a year. And I was like, gosh, I really want to do that, but I don't know where to go. I don't know how to do it. And then one day I just got up and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to do it. And I started ringing the phone, figuring out how to make it happen, and told Christina, and she's like, "Hey, I am fully behind this. What's your goal?" And I was like, my goal is I just want to do something for me. And I just thought it would be good for the soul to be able to talk about things, talk to people I want to talk about. And she said, "Well, what's your mission?" And I go, "I don't have a mission. I'm just going to do it." And that's what we've done. And it's amazing. Like, we've had a guest where we had more than 10,000 views on YouTube, and in all platforms together with 30,000
that's
views.
pretty great.
And then we've had some where there's like 200, and you're like, how does that? And then you'll get one where you set it up right, it gets started well, and all of a sudden it'll be taken down. Something will happen, like my kid watches all my podcasts, and we had one that we had 3 curse words on the podcast, and I told my team, make sure you take those out. And I was listening to the preview, it was out, and boom, all of a sudden our team didn't take it out. I'm like, oh no. So we had to go take it down, start it over, put it out again. And for whatever reason, you know how weird Facebook is and some of these social media, Instagram, we didn't have the same momentum the second time, and it didn't go anywhere. I was so frustrated, but there's a lot of things out of our control in terms of reaching an audience, but I love it, man.
It's been a lot of fun. My daughter does not watch these. Number one, it's too boring for her.
Okay.
She gets it. I talk a lot about insurance subrogation at home with her, and we try to talk about those things. But the subject matter too, probably for my practice, that in my blog, she doesn't, she wouldn't read it even if it was age appropriate and it just probably wouldn't. The topic wouldn't captivate her. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all, as lawyers, and this is a message for the young lawyers, right? Feed your narcissism. It helps. It works, right? And this helps. Having a podcast helps. Being able to communicate, frankly. I mean, and in all seriousness, being able to communicate, being able to be confident, being able to be yourself. Those are all things that work very well. Talking about lessons in front of a jury. Those are all things that work very well. Whether you're in trial advocacy or in a setting like this, and yeah, I'm with you. I mean, for me, it is. It's just fun. I just enjoy doing it.
Is there anything you found out about yourself, like rewatching your podcast, that you like a negative thing? You're like, I had no idea.
I have a lot of verbal crutches. I say, what was it? And my dad points it out. Or what was it? That's what it is. And so I and then I've said it a couple times with you, and I kind of did a mini one of those.
So mine is blinking. I had no idea.
I've noticed that about you
so much.
Oh my gosh!
And it's now I'm not going to be able to control it at all.
Creepy,
but it
man.
just doesn't even like tape them to.
No
just
wonder.
tape them open. But it's frustrating, and you're like, and then you're trying to get a good podcast. You're trying to do a good job, and then you're like, okay, so when I'm talking to Judge Burress today, let's focus on not blinking. And then you think about that for like 10 seconds, and you're
Wait,
like,
am I blinking?
Yeah. And then you can't. It's just. But I do think it really helps for trial presentation, just any kind of public speaking. I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're about done on JP, Kathy, and the Crew Network for today. You can watch JP, Kathy, and the Crew between 7:30 and 9, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You have been watching The Lawyer Show. The Lawyer Show is on Facebook Live between 12 and 1 every Thursday. Thank you very much to my guests. Catastrophic injury lawyer, McKinney extraordinaire, Jason Burress, for being here today.
MyTexasFirm.com, baby. Burress Personal Injury Law Podcast.
There it is. And thank you, everybody, and we'll see you again next week.
See you, everybody.